Album Concept Hour. The Album Concept Hour. It's the Album Concept Hour. Welcome, everybody, to the Album Concept Hour. We are here again to discuss kind of a double sequel episode, if you will. I'm Brad LeBaron, of course. We have John here.
Hi, howdy.
And we got Nate filling in for Dave today. What's going on, Nate?
Doing good.
Doing early on a Sunday today.
Yeah.
It's
We're
good for me.
recording
Different mood,
midday on a Sunday.
time.
The light is shining through the windows. We're feeling the breeze.
Yeah, feels nice.
And it
Feels
is a
nice.
breeze.
Yeah, it's actually good out
Windy
today.
day.
The double sequel I'm talking about is first of all, we have our third episode about King Crimson. First we did Court of Crimson King, then we did Islands. Now we're on to Discipline. Their, I think, fourth incarnation by some counts, 3 by others. I'm not sure exactly how everyone
It gets messy sometimes.
Yeah.
With bands like that, especially in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Well, and especially with this band, you know what I mean? But the other reason it's a sequel episode is it is our fourth episode talking about new wave and new wave adjacent music with our new wave experts and lead singer and songwriter of the Mommy Heads. We have Adam Elk back on the podcast.
What's
to give us our next lesson on the new wave. So welcome back, and I should mention, you are a part of the reason that you're coming on this week is you have a tour in this neck of the woods this coming weekend and next week. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we had a DJ in Milwaukee who works at Metro Jam, or he helps book. He's like the creative director, and we kind of chart on the station, or we have a lot of love over there in Milwaukee. And
You've been climbing the college charts, right?
Well, we have, we're a middling band. People, really diehard music lovers like us.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, and that's like 5 in every town, right? So it's we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, that's fair.
But this is a great station, and he basically every year he keeps asking us to come around and play, and it's so far for us that we're like, no, we can't do it. And so this year we were like, we just got to do it. And he's at WMSE and Bobby Midnight, and so we just said okay. And then they were like, well, how are we going to get to Manitowoc, or however, I'm sure it's said more properly there, but. So we had to book other shows, and all of a sudden we were calling Columbus and Cleveland, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no, we never thought you'd come." So we have shows there, and then Chicago 2 shows, Riverwalk right on the river at a Champion Brewery outdoor show at 6 on Friday, and then at night at the Montrose Saloon, it's owned by Eric Scheel, who's like an Elvis Costello, my kind of guy, like Graham Parker, Joe Jackson, 1980 lover. So. It's kind of a love fest all around, and then a record store in Milwaukee, and so we basically like kind of lucked out with all the gigs.
Man.
And
that's cool that you got a positive reception when you started doing the legwork for it. That's cool.
Well, the owner of the record store said as soon as the Metro Jam posted, he said, why are they coming? I thought they'd never play the Midwest, and that's when I was like. That's a challenge, we got to go play in Milwaukee. And even though it's a noon show, we're going to be at Irving Place Records on Saturday at noon. And it's all just like we're being, 35 years, someone's going to like us. So we're just going to where they are. And
and you just got back from a tour in Japan, so I mean, you guys still keep touring, you know what I mean? So, that's got to feel nice. What was that Japan tour like?
I never thought of Japan before. My son wanted to go, and then he bailed because he had a junior prom with a girl. So I went along. I went along with an empty seat.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I booked 2 tickets. He didn't show up. I went. I had 2 gigs. I got to say, Osaka was incredible, and Tokyo. I was like, "Are we going to fill this club?" And the woman from the other band said, "We have 40 million people here. It'll get filled."
Like, that's rad.
So then it was filled. I was like, okay, I trust you guys.
All right. I mean, Japan is, in general, is a great nation for loving music, and even acts that like we were talking about, like with the Ventures had like a big, post America, they were really, really big in Japan and got some success from that.
That's a phrase, basically.
It is, and it is
of that effect. And
yeah.
I'd side note, like, my thing is like metal when it comes to this podcast and our channel.
Yeah.
And like I've heard that there's more of an appreciation for metal in Japan, possibly because of their traditional instruments having more of like a natural distortion to them. So, but it's not just like metal. It's like I think they're a lot more open to like new and different music.
Yeah, that's like the kind of feeling I get. Like, I mean, even like my old band, like we had a record release in Japan. You know what I mean? And like, it's
Did you play there?
We didn't. We never ended up playing there. However, my old band did say if we ever do go to Japan, you can come with. So
it's a threat.
Yeah, it's a threat. Yeah. You have to be our roadie or whatever. It is one of those amazing places for that. You can tell even if you're an anime fan, you can also see their great appreciation for music. It's
a land of aficionados.
That's they like a good, like, well played music.
I mean, there's bar there. If you're into metal, there's an Anthrax bar. I'm sure you'll find it. There was a bar called Crimson Bar.
Ooh.
And I didn't make it, but I found out too late that there was a bar. They're playing Crimson all day, and it's just one of those places where you can have a bar and listen to one thing, and people will come from around the world when they visit. And if they're into that, they go to that bar. It's just an interesting place, and the food's incredible, and the dollar's strong. So I suggest everyone go.
Yeah, and was that your first time going in general to Japan?
I went on a stopover to Bali in the 90s, and
okay.
I was coming back from Bali, and I had Bali belly, which is like, you're not feeling that great. So I didn't get to really enjoy my day.
Yeah.
But this time playing, and also after our Geffen record had some action there in 97, 98. So people knew the songs off the Geffen record. So that helped. And I was appreciative of that for sure.
Yeah.
And they were clapping along and they knew the lyrics. So.
Oh, nice. Clapping
really
along
cool.
and singing along. That's got to just make you feel awesome, right? Like,
and in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was about to say that's something that when it comes to clapping, I've witnessed so many bad audience attempts at clapping, So yeah, anytime they're in time, it's like, hell yeah, we got a good crowd here.
I love when the band stops and they're like, "You guys are you're actually messing us up."
Yeah, you guys, let's just pretend we didn't.
You're
start
messing
this.
with our timing. Now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is just getting confusing for everyone involved. Let's just
start over. None of this happened.
Yeah, this never happened.
Okay, guys.
But yeah, speaking of keeping in time, we got King Crimson that we're talking about today, and talk about a band that would be difficult to keep in time with. As an audience member, we should set the stage, I guess, for this album a little bit. This is their '80s incarnation after a hiatus from Fripp and the band after Red. So this is the longest hiatus up to that point for the band, and Fripp slowly started getting back into the studio, playing on a Bowie record. He did the guitar for Heroes. He did some work with
he produced a Daryl Hall record.
Daryl Hall.
Oh, really?
Yep. He started.
It's amazing.
Yeah. He started getting involved in newer musicians to the scene and kind of reinvigorating his appreciation for the scene and eventually getting back into it fully with this King Crimson Discipline. So So what was it like? Just first reaction when this version of King Crimson started coming out? Was it?
I was blown away. I mean, I had a Court of the Crimson King T-shirt sewn to my denim jacket on the back. So nice. I was a Crimson fan when I was 7 or 8. I just loved him. I was a weird kid. It was my sort of comic book escape that the other kids had.
Yeah,
it was like the cover was beautiful. It was like a Spider-Man. It was like a comic book, So, and what I didn't understand, but what I understand now is they were like the beginning of sort of brutalism. And like the first record was a mind blower because it had jazz drumming and guitar from Fripp and Bill Bruford. Not Bill Bruford. The original drummer was not Bill Bruford, but it was a jazz approach to rock. It was Deep Purple were just going dun 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 dun, dun, and here's a band going like inside stuff.
Yeah.
So it created a new genre. And they were English, so they had no sense of humor. It was like all the kids that were the Dungeons and Dragons fantasy sci-fi kids finally had their band. And they opened, I think their first show they opened for the Stones, and the Stones were bluesy. And the thing about Crimson is there's no blues. There's no blue notes. It's very English. It's like Lord of the Rings, but it's incredible and it's gorgeous and it's brutal. And to me, it's the beginning of metal. It's the beginning of a new form of hard rock that is more classical. You know, they would double the guitars with saxophones. So the sax would be on the left or a bass clarinet and a guitar on the right. That's classical.
Yeah.
And so that evolved through the 70s. And like Red to me was the beginning of metal. If you really want to understand Iron Maiden and metal and all of that and where it's come through now and Ghost and all these, listen to Red. It's just four guys in a room, John Wetton on bass.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And still the jazzy influence of Bill Bruford, but it's it's brutalism at its like most concise. And then they get to the 80s, 10 years off. And then you have this new incarnation that is new wave prog, but with Adrien Belew in there, who's a complete genius to me, mixed with Fripp, who's a genius.
Yeah.
And Bruford, for many drummers, is a genius. And then you have Tony Levin, who could lead a band. His stuff, what he does in this band could be the band alone. He's like playing a stick, and he's melodic and in such a finessed player. Everything's finessed.
Yeah. And
then you just have this super group, which melds English like brutalism and sort of no sense of humor, or very sort of like English sense of humor, mixed with American humor. You know, Levin did like was very funny when he did his own things for these records, and then Adrien Belew is just the most happiest guy in the world. So his lyrics have a tongue in cheek, and you mix that with the melody of Belew and the brutalism of and you have this incredible new thing, and that blew my mind when it came out. And I feel music is just better for these records, especially this record.
Yeah. So when I was doing my listen through of the discography initially, because I was just, I learned I always knew of King Crimson, but I only dived into it after doing a few episodes on this podcast. And when it got to this album, I was so confused. First couple of songs.
So was everyone else.
I was like,
what is this?
I was like, did Spotify switch to a different band or something? What happened? Like
exactly the response you should have.
Yeah. And I was like, how can you reinvent yourself this well? Like, it's just, I guess, John mentioned, one great reinvention would be, Fleetwood Mac with, Fleetwood just hanging in the back and allowing this new incarnation to come forward.
It was both of them. Yeah. Fleetwood and Mac.
And Mac.
It was the bass, the rhythm section held the group together through a lot of things.
Agreed.
To get to the fame that was promised, the promised land, so to speak,
Yeah. And somehow these guys did, also reinvent it, and in such a big way, jumping right into the new wave in such a, their own way that reinvented it in, the King Crimson context,
I think it's as extreme, the 80s version of Crimson, as if you melded Fleetwood Mac in the late 70s, the hit-making machine, with Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
If you took Tony Iommi, half of Black Sabbath and half of Fleetwood Mac, then you would have the extreme new versioning.
Yeah.
Because they also brought in Afro things that were happening, Fela Kuti with the counter, so it become like your just mind would drift off to these counter rhythms.
Yeah.
And then on top, you have Belew singing Beatlesque melodies.
Yeah.
It exemplifies why a band is so needed in pop. And what we have now in pop music are solo artists and their brothers and sisters in bedrooms making the same thing over and over again. Like, they find a sound, it does well, and then they just keep doing it because there's nobody else in the band telling them, stop doing that. You're boring me. I'm going to leave unless we change direction. That's what a band is. You need that friction,
cooperation.
Exactly,
and the friction
gets you everywhere.
Yeah, it's that melding of both cooperation and friction, and pushing back and forth, and I mean they're especially notorious for that. I mean, not in like an extreme way, like Roger Waters kind of soloing himself during The Wall or anything like that, but like he definitely has his his wants and desires for what this thing is, and he will fight for those things.
That's a good example. I think any band worth their salt at some points hated each other.
Yeah.
And I hope they recorded those sessions because there's mutual respect.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were scared of each other. I'm sure Roger Waters scared everyone in Pink Floyd, and I'm sure Paul McCartney scared everyone in the Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're the Bee Gees and you're brothers and you have to do it, if you're going to hate each other, because that's the whole secret of the friction that makes it even more incredible, that you manage to push this boulder up a mountain. It feels like,
it is the family aspect of it. That's why so many family bands seem to work so well together, especially, farther back you go, seem to work so well together, but then some kind of family friction happens. And
well, I just watched the Beach Boys documentary on Disney Plus, which it goes over their back and forth history, and of course Brian Wilson kind of outgrowing them and at a certain point as a songwriter, but ultimately that was also a group that kept on working together and keeping those relationships open.
Which is why don't see the King. I'm just saying this from my point of view. Don't see the King Crimson movie. Because I saw it, and there's no Adrien Belew smiling, and there's no Bruford smiling. It's just Fripp scaring the hell out of his band.
Okay, is it a brutalist kind of?
It's just the brutalist side
of it.
And you have these musicians that are fearing for their life because they're in such awe of this guy who's just, it's brutalism. His path to the heart. He's like an angry mathematician, and an angry mathematician who can build a rocket, but he doesn't know how to say "I love you." And so his path to the heart we want to listen to, because that path is the same path we're on. It's hard for us to say "I love you" to people or to be kind, and as humans. So you're witnessing his path to the heart, and it's so gorgeous because you're in this maze and you want to stay there. That's what Fripp is. But when you see him interact with his band or see him being just weird on a movie screen, it's just you start to feel fear, and you're missing that beautiful path that he takes you on, his path, And so the movie is just plain scary. I didn't like it a bit. And Belew comes on for a couple minutes, and I'm like, thank God. Like, here's someone who's just goofy. He's like a dad, So don't see the movie. That's which will make more people want to see it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was about to say, the description of it was like, this sounds like juicy goss. I don't know. I did know. Yeah, I wanted to check it out. I might still do it. I don't know. I'm on the fence now, but do you guys want to get into
Let's do it.
A track though? We have there's 7 tracks on this album.
Get to the elephant in the room.
We got to get to the elephant in the room. Yeah. And then I got a couple double tracks. So, here we go on Elephant Talk.
Talk, debates, discussions. These are words with a D this time. Dialogue, duologue, diatribe, dissension, exclamation, double talk.
Yeah.
Oh, nerd rock to the max, right there.
Dude, so every part of it.
Or did the Talking Heads sound like King Crimson?
Well, I was gonna say, so Adrien Belew, the last time we had you on, Adam, we were talking about the Talking Heads Remain in Light, and Adrien Belew was the a live guitarist and singer during the Remain in Light tour, which during that time Robert Fripp got in contact with him to be part of this new project, which in the first form was just called Discipline. It wasn't even called King Crimson yet. It was just something he was messing around with, kind of,
Yeah, I mean, Belew was found in a bar in the Midwest by Zappa. Zappa asked his roadie, "What's a cool bar in town?" He said, "Go to this bar," and there was Belew. And then he just pulled him off the stage and took him on tour. Then
Hell
in
yeah.
Europe, Belew was in tour in Europe with Zappa, and then Bowie was with Iggy Pop in the audience. And then Bowie said, I heard your tour is ending in 2 weeks. Come with me after that.
Yeah.
And then that led to Fripp.
Yeah. He just
and
got
then that
all
led
over
to the
place.
Talking Heads.
Yeah.
And then the Talking Heads wanted David Byrne out. They wanted, Tina Weymouth and Chris France, who just introduced the Mommy Heads on a stage. By the way, I'm just going to toot my horn, but we were playing a CBGB's show, and I have pictures, I promise.
Oh
but
my God.
They were tired of David Byrne and his whatever, his whole shtick. So they asked Belew if he'd front them. I mean, this guy is the glue of music for like a 15, 20-year period for most people who take it as seriously as we do.
Yeah,
He was the glue. He was the glue.
Well, yeah, almost like a similar character would be like Steve Vai. I think he does a lot of live stuff and is actually touring with them with their not new incarnation. The Beat tour. They're doing.
So is the drummer at Tool, and that makes sense. If you're in Tool, you can listen to Tool. You'll hear this record.
That's one
Just
thing.
listen to Tool.
That's one thing that I only noticed this time listening through to it because we just recently did Dirt. What's the band? I never remember the name of the band.
9 Inch Nails.
No. They do Rooster.
Primus.
Oh,
we just
no, Alice in Chains.
Alice in Chains.
But also,
never
I
remember
was
the
thinking
name
of
that
Primus when I heard this because this
Primus, huge fans.
Primus
yeah,
for sure.
Brad and I listened to this. I listened to this for the first time yesterday when we were just doing something else. But, yeah, I thought my immediate thought with this song specifically was this sounds like it might have influenced Primus and Les Claypool.
Oh yeah,
and I bet.
Absolutely, yeah. This is because you don't hear this kind of like bass work that often.
Yeah,
well,
I personally think his whole career is based off, to some degree, the stick playing by Levin. Now, I don't want to make anything up, but if you listen to his low, flat sounding thumb operation stuff, it sounds like he wants to play a stick.
Well, but, so let's explain to the audience what a stick is, though. That's something that I didn't know about until I did the research for this. Like, it's this crazy, like, I don't know how many strings instrument, but it's got like, some stuff that's in the guitar range, some stuff's in the bass range. You get like a whole, like,
I personally think it's the closest thing to a piano that you could hold. Emmett Chapman in the early 70s, he could have had a dream while he was baked, and some Mendocino gold or whatever. But I'm sure he woke up and said, "I'm just going to make something you can play with two hands." And by tapping, you could have really low bass, and you can really have a full orchestrated instrument.
Yeah,
similar to a piano, because a guitar is not a piano. It's very thin. I'm a guitarist who doesn't like guitars as much as I want to play piano because it's just a full.
Yeah. Well, you can't see it, audience, but you can definitely see in the background of your room. But that is 100% true.
But guitars are limited, let's just say. But a Chapman Stick is actually not limited, and so what you get in this '80s incarnation is Levin could dominate the whole thing on his own. Levin and Bruford could have made their own record without Fripp and Belew, and that's what's amazing when you add the extra two people in.
Yeah.
It's just so fundamentally mind-blowing to hear all this together and done in such a progressive way.
Yeah.
And funky, very funky, but not on the grid, not like tight. There's a thing out now like Wolfpack or whatever, and like where I call it grid funk. Like it makes me uptight.
Okay.
This is very loose and warbly and human. And that's the amazing thing. They never got too technical. To me, it still feels warm and fuzzy. This could have been on Stax Records.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
like a funk label.
Well, that's the thing with like Fripp and his like kind of approach to King Crimson is like he, I've heard that he does not consider himself the leader of the band as much as the keeper of like this King Crimson sound. Yeah. And he likes to let everyone really express and like put it all get it all together and like less solo-y kind of way. It's more like they're all soloing together a lot of the time. He definitely believes in the sound and the nature of it and the philosophy of it, I guess, too, seeing as he became like a real music philosopher guy for that in between period between Red and this stuff.
Yeah, but there's something passive aggressive about that too, because when you say it's not about me, I promise, like everybody else has a voice.
Yeah.
Then you draw them in further and further until they're stuck like in quicksand. And then that's when you go, actually, I am the band. Like 20 years from now, I'm going to resurrect it without you, So there's a lot of contradictions with Fripp. And I think that's what scares any current member. They're like, let's not sink too deep into this.
Yeah.
We're a real band, and everyone has a say.
Yeah. He's because like that definitely comes to a head in the next couple of records. As far as like, Adrien Belew becomes kind of the lead singer, kind of lead guy for this incarnation, and he feels that pressure to like write more and be more a part of the writing process.
They had friction and they broke up.
Yeah, they did. It seems like he can stay with people for about 3 albums before the friction gets to them. But he definitely is one of those characters that is real hard to nail down what exactly is going on in his
Keep
head.
him guessing. Keep him scared.
Keep him scared, especially. Yeah. But I want to talk about the lyrics of this song because it's some of the most fun lyrics on the album, I think, just because again, we got this new wave sound, and then these verses are very Talking Heads-esque, in my opinion. And I love the whole, like, the first verse, a bunch of A words, second verse, a bunch of B words, third verse, a bunch of C words. It's a very simple but fun use of lyrics in this song, over top of course, all the, crazy, time signature stuff going on and all that. But
that's Belew. I mean, had there been 2 other Englishmen in the band, then you would have had, if there was any humor, it would have been austere and very economical humor.
Yeah.
Quick. But because there are 2 Americans and you have Belew's from the Midwest, and he's just goofy and he's confident in his goofiness because he's an American, then you get this great humor into this sort of intense brutalism, which again is the best. Like he's just having a good time. He's kicking back with a couple of beers while the rest of them are like, practicing, so that's the genius of this song in particular, and especially these 3 albums, is Belew's lyrics are hold up to me.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I really like, that's one of the best parts, I think, of the new wave that I've learned about is the lyrical content is always very interesting. And like, avant-garde or whatever, just, very, just throw it at the wall. It sounds great. I'm having fun doing it, and you can, also Elephant Talk, the titling of the song, you can kind of hear that in the instrumentation a couple of times, which is really impressive. I don't know what instrument is doing it, because this stuff's more complicated than I can pin down. But there are like a couple cool, even Elephant references.
Those are all guitars. That's Belew with his Roland, GR 500 or 700, just going nuts and turning his instrument into animal sounds.
Which is something that happens in jazz. Sometimes with like horned instruments, there's sometimes some jazz musicians that will like make wild animal sounds. But
perfect analogy, because I feel like when you go to a jazz show, there's someone's gonna scat. I can't stand scatting. Scooba-doo, but I love the concept of a vocalist trying to be a trumpet player or a drum player, like, and it's just the vocalist stepping out into another instrument zone. But the concept is wonderful, and that's what Belew does. He scats with his guitar. It's a perfect analogy to me.
Yeah. And we should mention, this is also the first time in the band that another guitarist was kind of given kind of the same footing as Fripp.
Which is dangerous. It's dangerous.
Yeah. They were literally like, both, front and center, and like both in charge in a weird way,
You can't have Brett Favre and Manning throwing 2 footballs to the same team. I mean, that's what was happening essentially.
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Maybe you could. I don't know.
I don't know. We've never tried it in football yet. I mean, they haven't taken quite the same approaches to
two quarterbacks at the same time.
Yeah,
throwing a ball.
That would
Whichever one gets
whoever
there.
catches
that would be
it.
pretty wild. That would be pretty wild.
Split the defense. No, not literally.
But this next track we got, I have a little bit. I have two tracks here, clips here. A little bit of the jammy bit, and then the chorus, of course. We'll do the chorus first, then we'll do the jam bit.
That sounds so new wave.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
And then here's the that wasn't the jammy bit, by the way. That was the chorus.
Oh,
this is the jammy bit now.
Yeah.
It's so like it's all jammy bits, but here's the jammy bit.
I've covered it, man. I love it.
Oh yeah, I hear.
Yeah.
I hear that's a tougher one. Is it? What?
I'll send you the
Yeah?
send you the link. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. That had to be a lot of practice for.
It's
you
actually
and
not
whoever.
that hard. It's not
Yeah?
that hard. You know,
Okay.
I mean that second section and also the first section, you hear Fripp, who's the angry mathematician who's building a
Yeah,
spaceship
yeah.
in his backyard.
Yeah.
And you hear that the melody, frame by frame, down by numbers. That's a romantic melody. So you have
Yeah.
this romantic singing over an angry mathematician. All the romantic just wants to shoot that
Mhm.
spaceship into space and have a big heart cloud shoot out, like fireworks
Yeah.
within a heart. And the mixture of the two, the brutalism and that sort of
Yeah.
romantic yearning,
Yeah.
is why it's so amazing.
Yeah, and
It's-
that even in earlier albums, that's when Crimson is best. You know, when they're able to weave that into the music. You know.
Totally.
And I will mention the first clip, the chorus bit. That definitely made me think of like, you know, alt rock, grunge era, like Alice in Chains era, like
Mhm.
stuff. Especially with the vocals, with the polyrhythm stuff going on. Like it, yeah, definitely ahead of its time. You know,
Yeah.
and really inspirational, obviously, to some groups going.
And there's
forward.
something here for like death and prog metal.
Mhm.
I was just curious because like we said with this podcast, we hear stuff and we're like, oh, this is probably influencing somebody. But like,
Yeah.
I can say based on what like there's other reviewers who have made this connection before that this sound on this song. If you've ever heard of Cynic, they're this death metal band from the early 90s that got back together. And then in the like 2009,
Yeah.
they've been doing like prog metal ever since. They got rid of like their harsh vocals. They're just doing like prog metal, but like a lot
Yeah.
of their rhythms are like that,
Yeah.
that part.
Mhm.
Paul Masvidal is like the lead of that band, and they very much use this kind of style
Yeah.
in all
Yeah.
of their like tech stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to hear it. Love to hear it.
Yeah, that polyrhythm stuff is like so, obviously important to prog rock, and I think probably also is reminiscent of the jazz influence that they started with, because
Totally.
jazz musicians love messing around with the time signatures.
I mean, my problem with most math rock that's been coming out for the last 30 years
Yeah.
is I'm not good at math. I failed math in school. So like
Yeah.
I'm trying to pick up polyrhythms that don't have a vocal on the top to anchor it
Uh-huh.
and a sentiment and a lyric that's memorable, and it's just math rock.
Yeah.
I move on. It's like noise to me.
Yeah, it's got to have both of those pieces for you.
Yeah, but if you
Yeah.
have a lyric on top that gives you a melody and you're like, oh, that's where that goes to 7/13,
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
I'll appreciate it more. And that's the hook
Yeah.
for me. Literally a hook.
Well, yeah, there
Um,
definitely are some like math rock people that are like it. The math rock is the entire thing. It's like look how many different polyrhythms I can lay on top of each other. I'm really good at math. But yeah, then I'm gonna bring up King Gizzard because I always do when you're on.
Yes, that is true.
Their most recent record, or one of the most recent, Petro Dragonic Apocalypse, is all polyrhythms all day, and I had definitely had to like look online and get assistance for like figuring out what all the all the different time signatures were. But it was really well done. There's a lot of chorus and melody on top of those things that again ties that stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're still human beings, right?
Yeah.
And if AI decides to listen to music and absorb entertainment, it might like math rock better than other things because it's something, it's
language.
Like, math is,
Oh, are you saying AI is developing an opinion and a brain?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
it's getting there, man. It's getting really,
it'll say,
really
I
good.
like that.
Yeah. I will say, just on the subject of like AI music, like it is getting actually really good, and that is scary because they can just take an entire voice from someone and make whatever they want to with that voice. Like it is just it's getting scary. It's getting scary out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people are already suing.
Right.
Yes, so. There's definitely some legal court cases that need to take place right now because it's just kind of the Wild West right now with the usage of AI.
I think for record companies though, and so, that's the scary thing too. Is like I'm thinking about pop stars who might be like, you know what? Fuck it. Just train it all on my albums, and I will own the AI produced garbage that comes out the other end.
Mm-hmm.
But it could have, there's those other artistic, like an art collective could legitimately like try to create, new art from their own art. But like as long as it's them that's doing the generating and then the selling.
That's going to become the problem.
Well, yeah, because we just did like Daft Punk, which uses a lot of sampling. And like, there is like a fine line between like using someone else's art just carte blanche and making a new thing out of that and then turning it into something else.
Yeah, transformative and all that. Whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody means well, right?
Yeah.
And we maybe, likeness is a big problem with music business. If the likeness is being abused, then you could take them to court. Here's the problem. If an AI company is somewhere else in the world, if they're in Vietnam, Spotify is in Sweden, and to me, it's a Ponzi scheme. This podcast can get played thousands of times an hour, but if it doesn't meet their thresholds, that money goes to Taylor Swift, and it goes to the top of the triangle. So that's a Ponzi scheme. That's what Madoff did. So, but they're in Sweden. They're not in this country. We can't break them up like they're a monopoly. So if once AI is in Vietnam or Cambodia or anywhere else, that's when it's a problem. And people like free stuff. So they'll have a gazillion listeners. It's off our shores and no one will care. And that's the thing I have an issue with.
Yeah. Spotify, like we are definitely documented on the podcast. Spotify's on our shit list.
Fuck
for sure.
Guys.
You're not alone.
Yeah. I'll change services soon, people. I know I'm still on Spotify, but it's just because I'm lazy.
Well, they're all the same. It's all the same.
That's also part of the issue too. Is like, well, can I find an ethical version of this? Bandcamp, I guess. Bandcamp is. It used to be every
CD sold.
Yeah,
you got a cut.
Yeah.
Every hamburger sold at McDonald's, someone gets a cut of that money.
Yeah.
They don't go, well, we didn't sell more than 1,000 that day, so it's gonna go to Taylor Swift. All the burger money. So it's this, you can't go into a bar and just push the tap down and walk out. But with music and podcasts, you can. And that's gonna come to a head. So
definitely.
It has to.
Definitely. We're definitely we're not at the end of the streaming age yet.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah. But this next track we got for you, getting back a little bit to them, Fripp and Belew kind of butting heads. We have Mate Kudasai coming on, and I have a clip from the original version and the version that is currently considered the album version. So here's the original version, which has a little bit more of Fripp. Which honestly, not it's not like it's like worse because of it necessarily. But anyway, here's the one that you commonly find on the album now.
She waits in the air, I'll take her to side. She sleeps in a chair in her sad America.
Okay, I know I just said that
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 is
original
fuck.
version is fine, but I do see why they made the decision to change it, because that version is just it's beautiful. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
But-
you can hear it. There was a thing, Frippatronics. He was just delaying his guitar, but it's this gorgeous woo. It's just sustaining into infinity guitar. And
Yeah,
it's just gorgeous.
yeah. I saw like a picture of him using that thing, and it was like I don't necessarily understand what's going on here, but
Yeah.
it looks really really cool.
Yeah.
But the original version though you hear has like a lot more of the there's like another lead thing happening throughout the song that's basically just gone in the normal version now.
Yeah, and it's a great. You need a song like this on a record to clear the palate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
After all this information is coming at you.
Yeah.
And you're confused. It feels like magic. And then all of a sudden you just get this like, nice cool breeze.
Yeah.
That's the way I see this song.
It is like if there's a single for this album, this would be the
You
single.
want it to be
I
a
think.
nice nighttime cool breeze.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah.
Just get your face in a little bit of breeze. Give a nice forlonging look into the.
yeah, dude. I totally feel you on that. Like, and and the lyrics, are pretty have that longing too. The whole, it's got like kind of a story that's apparently similar to Madame Butterfly, a story I don't know a lot about, but that story has a, I believe it's a Japanese lady that I think is involved with a American military man. I don't know the details of the story, but this seems to have a similar kind of thing going on. But the Japanese lady is in America and feeling that longing and waiting and pining for her like American boo, and it's just a really pretty song. And Monte Kudasai means please wait in Japanese. So yeah,
I think the word forlorn, which Americans don't use, you don't look to your partner and go, "You look forlorn" or whatever.
yeah.
It kind of works.
Yeah,
It's
it's
bittersweet.
Yeah, that just there's love there, but it's like there's tragedy there too.
Yeah, it could disappear.
Yeah,
Very Shakespearean word, forlong.
Yeah.
Forlonging.
Yeah, and
Forlorn.
yeah, the Japanese do have a lot of phrases that just we don't have to describe how they're feeling and thinking. It's pretty amazing. But it's this is definitely like this song like the first time I heard it just hit me so hard. Like it was just like it wasn't what I was expecting after the first couple of tracks. And it's I don't know. This really is one of the better, like for me, one of the kind of iconic King Crimson songs in general. Like it's one of my favorite of the discography, I think.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
A very disciplined song.
But not this next song.
Unlike our next song.
Not this next song though. Yeah. The next track we got for you is called Indiscipline. So it's an inverse of the title.
Like not looking at it for a whole day and then looking at it to see if I still liked it.
I did.
Very goth.
That's very creative process too.
And speaking of another King band, King Missile.
Oh,
This
I
song,
know those guys.
This song reminds me of King Missile a little bit.
We used to
all
play
the
with them.
You used to play with King Missile?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Detachable
man.
Penis.
Yeah, I love their like
Oh, they're the
whole
best.
thing. Like they're great. That's awesome. But
Yeah.
like I always think of like, there are all these like king bands, and weirdly
They're always good.
they're always good. Yeah, that's the weirdest thing is like they are all really amazing in their own right. But yeah, this one though is just so fun. Such a cool concept for the song, with it being I guess the very last day they had to record this, that's when they got the lyrics down, because they just didn't have anything.
Really reflects in the lyrics, I feel.
Well, yeah. So it's from a letter from Adrien Belew's then wife Margaret about a painting that she had made, and she was just kind of describing her feelings about her painting, whether or not
I
she
just
liked
didn't
her
look
painting,
at it for a couple days, and
I love these,
hey, I do kind of like it.
I did,
but we'll keep it around.
Yeah, that fits
Like-
totally too with like the creative, because you hear about your favorite band going in the studio and then like the iterative process for a song
Yeah,
can sometimes take a long time because you're just like
yeah,
that didn't work, or like we'll just set that aside though. And
uh-huh,
sometimes those songs come back up later in the discography, or there'll be a B-side somewhere, but then like this song happened to make it, but it literally has that creative process baked into it with the lyrics. And
yeah.
it matches painting. It's
And with the titling "In Discipline" is like very, very like
Fits.
it fits because like it is. I think it started as a long drum solo thing with just like a guitar lick, and then Belew added some melody, Fripp added something, so it kind of like it. It has a feeling of the Indiscipline, I guess, in the way that it comes out.
I thought it was about, he was talking about his guitar.
Oh, okay.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Like it was sitting in the corner and he's just looking at it and it's talking to him and he's having a conversation, meant his own,
Huh.
but a piece of artwork.
I like that.
Yeah, right?
That version of thinking about it. Yeah. Like a conversation between him and his guitar. Yeah.
But we project our own lives onto stuff until we're told by the artist what it's about. And then sometimes you're like, oh, it's that, or, oh yeah, totally,
Yeah.
This time I was like, oh, I didn't get that. Like, I thought it was about an instrument, because that's how I felt about my guitar growing up,
Well, yeah, with this podcast, I run it. That's like something like, I run into all the time with songs that I've listened to forever. I've like created this whole, story and landscape for this thing. And then, for Sgt. Pepper, I find out that Paul McCartney just misheard someone say salt and pepper, and Sgt. Pepper came up. It's like, what? What are they doing? Like, what is songwriting?
Well, I think part of the genius of a lot of artists is they get stuff wrong,
mm-hmm.
and then we interpret or project our own lives onto whatever they got wrong. And when you get something wrong, the inverse of wrong is original.
Yeah.
Me,
Yeah.
When you get I think I mentioned this before, when you get it too right, you're a cover band.
Yeah, that's true.
Then you're just learning other people's songs.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't know how to learn other people's songs and you constantly get things wrong,
yeah,
you're more original. So it's like, that's something I could tell my kids. Like, it's okay to misinterpret or misappropriate or get things completely wrong.
Yeah,
like fail.
Music
it's okay to
definitely
fail.
teaches you that. Like, especially if you learn about the writing process. Like, that is a core part of the writing process.
Failing
and then being like, wait a minute, what was that?
That was cool.
That sounded cool. Let's do that again.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that I want to say Miles Davis gave that advice to Herbie Hancock or another big jazz person, but a very similar kind of philosophy. In general, I think Fripp and Miles Davis do have a similar kind of trajectory in the sense that they're constantly reinventing and
they're constantly failing well.
Failing upward in a sense.
Failing upward.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and just the jam of this one's just is the most jammy, I think, of the album. They're just all in the pocket with each other.
Well, the feeling I get from that moment where it's like, what is going on? And then it just goes nuts is the same thing that the Pixies did, that Nirvana ripped, loud to soft, soft to loud. And this one has it like, holy mackerel. Like, you gotta you'll blow your speakers out because you're leaning in, turning it up. What's happening?
Yeah.
Right?
That's like something that is like hard to do well. There's like
to lure them in.
Yeah, and you can do it for a long. Like if you're good enough, you can do that kind of thing for a long time, and then just
I know.
Yeah, 1-2 punch. But yeah, this next track we got for you also has a pretty. This one has probably the most storied track of the album. There's a lot of audio of this story in general, but this is Thela Hun Ginjit.
I'm nervous as hell from this stuff, because those guys were gonna kill me for sure. They ganged up on me like that. Couldn't believe it. I mean, look, I'm still shaking.
So, Adam, do you know what the original conceit was for writing this song? Do you know
I know this.
Story?
I know he was living in Manhattan, and there was some altercation in the street, and he just retold that altercation.
Yeah, so
and it makes it even feel more like seedy New York downtown, early '80s, like grimy.
Well, what's cool is like the original concept for the start of writing this song was John Lennon had gotten assassinated, and they wanted to make a song that was kind of about the mean streets of of New York or just any any mean streets maybe that you would run into. The titling is an anagram for heat in the jungle if you move around the letters. Because apparently it was just called Heat in the Jungle at first, and then like Fripp was like, you got to figure something else out for the title, and and that's part of again probably what got into the final version of everything, but yeah, so it was originally that was the conceit of it, and then while they were recording, he went outside with the tape recorder and then had his own Mean Streets experience on top of the, inspiration for the song being, the tragedy of John Lennon being assassinated. He then had his own experience that added to the entire, concept of the track. And
it definitely brings me back to New York in the '80s, which was scary. Like not unlike any other cities in America at the time.
Yeah,
but New York had an extra edge. There was something wrong with New York. It was a little rotten at that time.
Yeah,
and in the same way, you go to Times Square now, and you're going to be attacked by a big walking Gumby or a Godzilla, character. Back then, you didn't know if you were going to get mugged or not. It was just going to happen. Everyone was a target, and I think that's the genius of this record. Is it exemplifies a time. It's a time period piece, and that's what's so great about these lyrics to me.
Yeah, because that was definitely famously that was a hard time in New York's history with a lot of places being demolished and have whole blocks of buildings just not being there. It was the where hip hop was able to get roots partially because of that hardship.
People were squatting in buildings in the Lower East Side that they could buy for $1. But just pay the back taxes, which might have been $30,000. No one wanted them.
Yeah.
Now they're gazillion-dollar properties.
Yeah. It's been a lot of parts of New York have been thoroughly gentrified since then. Yeah. But yeah, I love. I do enjoy this track and how they put everything together. Adrien Belew basically had come into the studio, was telling this story. And Fripp nodded to the recording guy to press the record button to get the actual story down. So it's really just the whole story start to finish for this song is just very, very cool for if you're into the background production stuff. And you can hear a longer version of the story later in the expanded version of the album.
This is the point in the record where you realize this is a band that just cares about music. and cares about bringing you an experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in the day, I'd say 99% of the bands just wanted to make money, get signed, play big shows. This is why musicians love this band, because if you're graduating Berklee, you want to just make a mark and you want to be a great musician.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear a lot of music from this time period, even now, it feels like people are kind of selling out, or they're just, you know, they're held hostage by their influences, right? Oh, you sound just like, you know, Death Cab, or you sound like this. And it's like, well, yeah, I was inspired. And you're trying to like mine that for more people, hits on your page. And here's a band that could care less. And if you ever look at an interview, they didn't make any money. They broke up in 83 or 84 because from day one, it was a money-losing proposition, but they wanted to be there. And so if you're a musician or you take music seriously, at this point in this record, you're like, this band, I know this band. These are people I want to, like, I want to be a fan because they exemplify doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. And they want to be there. They just want to be there and make art.
They just want to play.
It's not about anything else, you know?
Yeah, they just want to...
And that's the influence, all these bands, the Tools, the Porcupine Trees, the Ghosts, the Opus, the Dream Theaters, the Mars Volters, all of them can hear that in this music. They can hear the pure love for being in the studio doing something you've never heard before. And why else do this? Yeah. And so that's the ultimate takeaway for King Crimson for me is, even with the music, I mean, it's incredible, but that feeling like, you know, it's only about the music, and it's only about sheer artistry.
Yeah. There's nothing like that kind of enthusiasm, you know?
Yeah.
Untampered.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what I say to anyone that I'm trying to like get into King Crimson. Like the first thing I'll say is like, you know, the, you know, rock musicians that you like and shit, this is the band that they like. Like, this is the band that your favorite rock band likes, you know?
While the other band's on the jet.
Yeah.
And they got to keep copying the hit to stay on the jet. This band was in the station wagon.
Yep.
Pointing to the jet going, those poor guys.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I like that way of looking at it.
Right?
Because it definitely, there are certain groups throughout history, you know, that are just, they never are the single person. They're never in the zeitgeist or whatever, but like they, you know, if you dig just one layer deep, you know,
exactly,
they're everywhere, you know.
And don't get me wrong, I love Foreigner and I love the Bostons and the Kansases and the blah, blah, blah. And the Heart, I love a couple of Hearts. But this band was pointing to their jet going, I feel bad for them. This band was, because we get to make this music.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, actually, speaking of pointing to your jet, this next track we got for you is a little track called The Sheltering Sky.
Ooh.
With that clip, I can see what you mean more about the world beat influence. World beat was like all over the place in a lot of the early 80s music. But yeah, that and tying that back into what we were talking about just a second ago about this band influencing, go check out Cynic fans and everybody here because like that also, they kind of do that same thing as well in a lot of their stuff. So yeah, wow. I kind of
definitely gonna check them out.
Yeah, check them out because they're not like when I said death metal earlier, like that's like the least of it, but it contributes this part that's like really fun. But then now they're like doing like all this like very spiritual prog rock nowadays. So it's like they run the gamut. But they're check them out because when I hear stuff like this, this I can definitely see that they heard that Paul Masvidal heard this.
Well,
this record in his youth.
Well, and speaking of the spirituality of it, that's one thing that Fripp was consciously trying to kind of infuse with some of his music, because that's something he studied. I forget who exactly it was, but there was like a specific like philosopher and you know, spiritual guy that he was very into, that he kind of like, he had like a group that he was like a guitar teacher for a little while, and he just had like this philosophy that like, you know, he put up as this guitar teacher, and he's a heady guy, you know, that Fripp.
Oh, he had his Fripp school and you could hear on there. I mean, Bruford has this slit drum, which is an African drum.
Mm-hmm.
They were messing with gamelons, which is Balinese.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a different set of you know, when you play a guitar or a piano, you're locked into a Western scale, or at least the tonality. Like you can get microtonal things out of these other instruments, and when you mix the guitar back in as a Western band, I mean, let's face it, they're a bunch of Western guys.
Yeah. A lot of what we talk about on the podcast is Western music.
Yeah, but just introduce a slit drum, and all of a sudden you might be bending your note up to that note that's coming out of this exotic drum, and then all of a sudden you're not a Western band anymore. You know, you're experimental, and that's again, you know,
and
working
I mean
with different instruments.
Yeah, like Zappa is another group, you know, at this time that was, you know, doing that. Well, you know, earlier than this, definitely doing that. You know, having those Mid-Eastern and Eastern influences on their, you know, Zappa's guitar solos and things like that. Which, you know, of course, Adrien Belew would have witnessed firsthand with Zappa, you know. I
mean, Zappa's a whole other.
Yeah.
I can't even go to the Zappa place because it's just it'll devour this conversation. It's a hungry fish. So
yeah, well, I mean, hey, maybe we'll do another Zappa episode or something. You know, we've only done Joe's Garage.
Joe's Garage.
Oh,
Joe's
yeah.
Garage.
I grew up on Joe's Garage,
Yeah.
and you know, for me, the guy just lived and breathed music. So you know, very opinionated. People are very opinionated about Zappa, but it's hard to dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's a hungry fish. So let's stay focused.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I again, like that's something that is newer to my music palette, and I am just, you know, enjoying the entire discography and learning about what he brought to music and stuff that I didn't know about, you know.
One word, fearlessness. That's would be for Zappa.
Yeah.
Definitely did not have any fear.
Yeah, dude, he said whatever the fuck he wanted to say, man.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the one I love watching interviews of Zappa.
Yeah.
Watching him talk, man. He's a good talker in general.
He had the music industry like pegged from the beginning.
Definitely. He knew exactly the trajectory it was going to take. Yeah. Like,
He was the one hippie not taking the drugs.
He was a very necessary part of that, you know, the explanation and exploration of that period, you know. We needed someone with a clear mind.
Checks and balances. There needs to be someone going, you're saying what you're saying is stupid.
Yeah.
That was him.
I've been sober the whole time.
Exactly.
And I still thought this was great.
I mean, if you have you have to have the antithesis to Ted Nugent, because he's also famously sober, so you have to have your Zappa. If you have a Nugent. It's the antimatter.
There's all the balancing that goes on to make music good.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is referencing Paul Bowles' book of the same name, Beat Generation writer, which, you know, that's something that they bring on to the next album is their inspiration from Beat Generation.
Oh yeah, Neil Jack. What was it? Neil Jack and I, or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great.
So this is, you know, kind of looking forward to the next one. And just a beautiful, expansive track, very cinematic, I think. And I got to read this story though, because there's apparently a lot of musicians that have referenced this story in different songs throughout the years. So it must have been a really, you know, impactful story. But I haven't read it yet.
Which story?
The Sheltering Sky.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Apparently, like, this is not the only song in, you know, rock history that references that specific story. So,
well, On the Road is as pivotal as Catcher in the Rye. You know, we get it.
Of course, On the Road.
It triggers it. You know, it triggers great lyrics from people who don't care about the story. Like if they read it once, they're like, "I'm inspired."
Yeah.
So
you only really need to read it once. You know.
Exactly, you get it, and but very meaningful for definitely generations. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then we have one final track on this album, and this is where we get our titular track, Discipline.
Yeah. Fripp kind of takes over in the end. He's like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, all right,
Oh,
with
yeah.
all these nice, pretty melodies.
Yeah. Let's jam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently it became the new hardest song that Fripp had played up to that point, replacing Fracture as his
makes sense.
hardest guitar part.
Well, Steve Vai has to practice to do this beat tour. I mean, Steve Vai, you know.
Yeah.
He knows he's up against it.
Yeah. I was. Did you see the interview with Beato?
It all makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long interview, but and I got through
Good
half.
interview.
But
Yeah. I got through half too, but yeah, it's he's on his he is like worried
he needs
himself.
To bring his A game.
Yeah.
Well, the brutalism to me is not only that he scares people in the industry and other musicians with his personality, even though he can be goofy with his wife, but you know, Steve Vai, when he does a solo, most soloists in general, I'd say 99% of them will stop and do a long hold note, you know, so you know, he doesn't do that. He keeps going on a treadmill that you need 30 fingers for. So, and then Belew will complement.
Yeah.
But he's literally a machine, and the brutalism is just, please stop hitting me with those notes. And you're bludgeoning me. And he just says, no, it's good for you. You know, he says it's a massage.
Take your medicine.
You're saying, he thinks it's a massage, but it's actually drawing blood. And that's the brutalism in his playing, you know?
Yeah.
And, but yet it's musical, and you're there to the very end. And that's it's the path. He's on this path to the heart. Somehow with the brutalism, he's trying to find his own emotions and meaning to life. And you stay on the path with him. I don't know what it is about him, but we don't get bored and we don't lose interest.
Yeah.
At least I don't.
Well, this one, because there's, you know, talking about polyrhythms, this is like the most, you know, the biggest representation of that polyrhythmic, hypnotizing kind of approach where like everything is like a little off of each other, but like syncs up every now and again.
Well,
so
one person's playing in 7, and then the other person plays in 6,
Mm-hmm.
then meets up in 7, then goes back to 6.
Yeah.
I would imagine Fripp kept the meter on the 1, bludgeoning us on the right speaker, and then the left speaker, you'd have Levin, and then Levin does his own thing. It could be in 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And they're all meeting up at one point.
Yeah.
So it's like 4 clocks. At some point we'll hit the same.
Yes.
And then they'll go back onto the cacophony. And when it hits that same thing, you have your point of reference.
Yeah.
And so that sort of dropping a beat every other one is, and to keep it, and to know when the song goes to verse to chorus and they all move together.
Yeah.
That is a band that is great players and well-written music.
Yeah.
And John Cage started that early in the 50s and 60s. So this is referencing, it's going back, you know.
Yeah.
But as a band, like, holy mackerel. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I think that's why it is titled Discipline. You know, this one has, I think, the most musical discipline like necessary for, you know, keeping this going and as perfect sounding as it is, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is exciting. I'm so glad you guys did this record.
Me too.
It's about time.
Thank you for bringing this one up. Like because we talked about it in the last episode. We were almost making that into a discipline discussion at the end, because like it's like the natural progression, I think, from our discussion with like Remain in Light. You know, it's like, what if Remain in Light had crazy polyrhythms all over the place? You know. Well,
it does, but it usually stays in 4/4. These guys dropping beats, and they have the math thing down. So
yeah. Like I never got quite that far in musicianship. Like I've only fucked around with 4/4. Like I didn't go much further than that. But yeah, it's hypnotic for me whenever I hear this kind of stuff. Like, you know, you can like, you know, headbang to it kind of, but like you also gotta like, you know.
Well, most people, I would imagine most people don't like it. My wife passes by me when I'm blasting it, and she's like, I don't get it, right? So because the experience I feel listening to Crimson at their peak is you're in an art gallery looking at the art.
Yeah.
Then it's gonna say, hey, we're gonna remove the floor. Then the floor drops out, and you're still looking at the art, and you're looking down, and your feet aren't planted anywhere.
Yeah.
And that fear of listening to music without a floor or a ceiling
Yeah.
when they do their polyrhythms,
Yeah.
I think is scary for 99% of the population. They really just want to hear Taylor Swift. They just want to hear, that. You know, they don't want to hear this because they want a floor. Everyone wants a floor in the museum. So I like the floor being dropped out. We need a Taylor.
We do need a Taylor Swift that is willing to
drop the floor.
That would be pretty amazing if I heard some polyrhythms in some but
Taylor I mean, would you agree? Like once it starts going off the rails, and you don't know what the signature is, but then they land somewhere like a flock of birds just pivoting.
We almost need a little bit of you almost need a little bit of schooling in music. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that I appreciate these kinds of polyrhythms because my brother was in jazz band and I got to see him and their jazz bands perform like really crazy, cool solos and things that are off tempo and off rhythm and stuff.
It's like Coltrane, you know?
Yeah. Like,
I mean, he was on drugs, you know, we're taking that journey with him, but I don't think you need I want to say it's not so much schooling. I think you just need to be a fearless listener. And I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
But I think it feels good to me. Like you have to be okay with being scared.
Yeah.
As you listen.
Yes. You have to embrace the fear.
It's like a horror film. You know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there are. Yeah, because horror films, some are not everybody's bag, but like
exactly.
You know, for the people that it is, it's like, no, this is beautiful art that we're witnessing. You know.
Well, it's the best time for this kind of music, I think. But it's weird because it's simultaneously like the worst time for music artists, but also now all of their music most of the time is at everybody's fingertips.
Yeah.
You can discover it algorithmically. You can discover it by searching, like doing research on Wikipedia. It's a lot easier than the tape trading days. But of course, you don't get paid in exposure via Spotify.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's like, but I'm glad to hear that you said that like Fripp is on tour, going on tour with Steve Vai, because it's like,
well, it's not Fripp.
It's
not Fripp. Fripp's the only one. He has they have his blessing.
Oh, they have his blessing. Okay.
But he basically Steve Vai.
Go be brutal.
Yeah.
Go be brutal.
Yeah. Steve Vai is basically sitting in for Fripp, which is why Steve Vai is so scared about this tour. You know.
But I think, that's what I was trying to say is like a more broad audience can come to King Crimson and these kind of bands. And, you know, like I was at a concert of like one of my favorite bands on Friday this week, and you know, I'm just like thinking about like, oh, they draw this huge crowd, but like there's no like household names really anymore, unless you are already like Taylor Swift or Beyonce or
you have to be in like the pop sphere,
in the hard rock sphere, like. There's those hard rock bands that everybody knows because they did the one cover one time of Sound of Silence.
The Sound of Silence.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
Alien Ant Farm
Disturbed
covering
did the
Michael
Sound
Jackson.
of Silence.
Is that Disturbed?
Yeah, they did a pretty good rendition, and it's actually weird because now on YouTube it has more views than the original Simon and Garfunkel version.
Oh my God.
Which I mean, it's not as good. It's not as good. It's not arguable in my heart, but
yeah.
But it's not more views.
His voice is so low that I think it causes spleen ruptures. for most people, their spleen just ruptures. It's like,
no, it's definitely we're in a different place for music. But I think I do agree with you in a sense, though, Nate, that like people do have more access to a wider variety of music than maybe ever at their fingertips. So it's like the barrier of entry is maybe lower than it's ever been, whether or not that's good for the musicians. But
I there's positives and negatives, and they're very strong. The positive for me is, you know, in the 80s, I had to wait months for an import to come from England for my favorite bands.
Right.
And then when it showed up, I was a real fan. Mm-hmm. So that's a positive. Now it's like no one's really a fan of anything. Yeah. But if they come to town, you might see them and be blown away. Yeah. So I like, and it's easier to make records. Like now you can make it, and there's you don't have to spend $1,000 an hour in a studio. So I think it's a great time for content. There's going to be a lot of content. There has been a lot of content, and which is sad because my favorite bands from the 60s and 70s could have made more had they had more money, or didn't have a flop. Like maybe one record was a flop and they had to wait 5 years to reconstitute what they were doing. Right. So it was, so there's the positives are great. If we could just accept the fact that no one's going to make money. And if you accept that as a musician, you're happy. Just be happy.
Yeah. Or
forget about the money.
Yeah. Or like I saw the band I saw was Baroness and they, I think of the bands that they take with them.
Yeah.
They're working musicians. Yeah. They make money at the merch table. They make money off of the, the venue helping them out, getting them out there. And so, that's what you got to do. You got to work.
Playing live is almost more important in that sense because like that's where you are getting the biggest chunk of your return, you know? But I would recommend if anyone wants to like get a good video on YouTube of the subject, there's a really good video from Polyphonic called "The Death of Genre." And it's kind of a bittersweet, he's kind of saying some of the stuff we're saying here, where it's like, it's a different situation, which is good for content, but like, not necessarily good for the bottom dollar of, the people that are making it. But again, if you can find the balance and make it keep doing it, like,
there are moments of clarity. I think the Justice Department is suing Ticketmaster, Live Nation.
That's right.
Because I don't know the details, but I can tell you that Live Nation and Ticketmaster at least appear pure evil to me. And if you're,
I've seen like stuff on
for a while.
Like Ticketmaster has been controlling prices.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can only believe half of everything that Adam Ruins Everything says, but he's not entirely wrong. He had a whole episode on it.
Yeah.
And it's like they've been controlling music and like concert prices since like the 90s.
There's very few independent, family-owned places that size that could handle, a real tour, like a Porcupine Tree. They have to go to these Ticketmaster Live Nations. It's a monopoly, and if the Justice Department does its job, then we may be back to a better place for live shows where the band gets a better take and a fairer ticket price. Look at ticket prices are $500 and up for nosebleed seats for most shows.
Yeah, it's getting pretty wild out there. Like
that's ridiculous.
I definitely can't go to as many shows as I used to, and I love going to shows, but $200 a ticket or something for a band that I like, but it's just a lot, 200 to 500, because I think the Taylor Swift ones were like 500 for even the far away seats,
Right.
It's that between that and health insurance, you're going to pay your premium that month, so I mean, that's just, they need to break it up and they need to have more money going to somewhere other than a few people who own it.
Yeah. We're lucky in Madison to have like a decent amount of venues and stuff, for the smaller, groups to be able to make, the money from the door or something,
That's good.
But, it's a weird place out there. Music industry is constantly changing, and maybe next time we talk about King Crimson, we'll talk about how things changed in their coming decades, But before we get out of the podcast, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to go around the room and find out what everyone has been listening to lately and what they have to plug. I'm going to go me, John, Nate, and our guest. I have been I'm still listening to a lot of the samples from the Discovery record because they're just really good samples. And then yesterday I was driving around with my dad and I put together a playlist just for him. I'm trying to get him into, different rock stuff than just like Pink Floyd and the Beatles, But he liked one of the Zappa solos that came on. And he liked one of the King Gizzard songs that came on. So hopefully I'm getting him into some newer stuff. But as far as the what I'm plugging, I'm plugging the Mommy Heads tour coming directly to your state this weekend. Manitowoc is the big one you were talking about. Saturday, yep.
We're playing Milwaukee on Saturday at noon.
Oh, that's right. You're doing two that day. Yeah. That's bold.
It is bold.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if we're insane.
I've never done it that way, but is there enough time, to relax for a second?
We get a short amount of time because we're all dads and have full-time jobs, and you just can't. 4 really 4 days to do 6 shows. We're gonna be exhausted, but feel good musically.
Dang, that's really you're really cramming it in. But
Yeah,
good
so
on
Irving
ya.
Place Records on Saturday. Friday, we're playing Riverwalk at 6 p.m. at Chicago at Northman Brewery, and then 10 o'clock at Montreux Saloon the day before. And the Thursday, we're in Columbus at Natalie's, and Wednesday, we're at Happy Dog in Cleveland.
Yeah, and we'll have links in the description for all that. By the way, I'm going to try to go out to the Manitowoc show. If you want to see me at the show, go to that one. And just really excited to finally shake your hand in person. You know. John, what about you? What have you been listening to lately? What do you got to plug?
I've been listening to just a lot of country again. Was listening to a lot of Alan Jackson the other day at Wings.
Yeah.
Otherwise, to plug, everybody should watch Idea Man on Disney Plus. Really good.
Okay.
Disney Man, and I think I plugged it last time too. The butterfly, the Reading Rainbow story, Butterfly in the Sky. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Both
Nice.
2 solid documentaries. I love me a good documentary.
Disney's been putting out some good documentaries the last month or two.
Yeah.
They've been-
And I tell you, Idea Man made me cry a little bit. I love the story of the Muppets. It's Jim Henson.
That's gonna make me
Muppets and
cry
like
too, man.
Sesame Street.
Yeah.
How he did like the Muppets second, but after Sesame Street. But even then, when he did the Muppets, he didn't want to leave Sesame Street behind, and that's why.
Yeah.
Those two just like stayed strongly successful.
Yeah, legend of our childhood, several childhoods in a row, What about you, Nate? We've been jamming on.
Well, yeah, I've been obviously. So I mentioned Baroness. I've been listening to a lot of Baroness, pretty much all their albums. They're a great psych rock kind of outfit from. They're currently based in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got to plug their tour because they're on tour right now. And
That's
related to that, we have a short. I made a short yesterday after I got. I went through the VIP experience at their concert. It's like only like $160 after all of the fees that are extracted.
It's not
But
bad
like
for VIP.
it's not that bad for a VIP experience.
Yeah.
You can check out our short on it, and it explains all the different extra merch you get as a result of that package. And then also on our Flyover State Park channel as well is Green Theme from Baroness. I recorded it with my phone, and it was so good that it was like, that viral live video from the concert tour. And I was like, I saw the set list, and I'm like, I have to get one of my favorite songs. So that's all up there. We're enjoying them right now. And then we got that Wings video where we listened to their latest album, Stone.
Yes.
And ate hot wings. So that's it.
Yes, that was a hard.
Just a Baroness.
That was a tough video.
Thing. Yeah, that was a tough video.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? You been listening to anything specific lately on preparation for the tour?
I got turned on to Gaz Combs' last record from Supergrass called "Turn the Car Around." Supergrass had a record called "We're Only in It." No, I forget the record. It was like "In It for the Money" or something. But that came out the same day as OK Computer, so '97.
Okay,
kind of a '90s band that got lost, but it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I also reignited my love for UK, a band that had Bruford in it, as well as John Wetton, who sang with Crimson, and Asia.
Oh, wow.
The band from the Alan Holdsworth.
So this is a sort of super group.
Who inspired Eddie Van Halen more than anyone. Terry Bozzio, who played with Zappa amongst...
What's the name of this group again?
UK. It's the worst name ever because you just get the continent. But if you type in UK Bruford, you'll get a live album called Night After Night, and it's incredible. It was recorded at the Budokan. They opened for who'd they open for? I forget. And the last thing I'll say is I walked around Tokyo and Osaka listening to a band that are contemporaries of ours that I didn't know about until recently, called Yurai Te Koku.
Okay.
And if you type YURA into Spotify, the album Sweet Spot is, I think, a Japanese punk rock masterpiece.
Okay.
And they broke up, but they were around the 90s and 2000s, and it's really cool music. It's all in Japanese, so you got to kind of, again, open up your, just go with it.
Yeah. Which I think is an easier ask now that like people have been into like K-pop in such a big way. It's like, listen, you've heard music in different languages. You can, it's fine, you know.
But there's no dubbing. So you won't know what he's talking about, but it sounds cool, and it is really cool.
Yeah.
Yudai Te Koku. That was the band I got when I was in Japan playing shows, so it was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
definitely have to check that out. And everyone, definitely, if you're in the area, go check out the Mommy Heads discography. They have a very full discography, and you can go enjoy them in Manitowoc, or Milwaukee, or Chicago, or wherever it is on the tour. We'll have links in the description again. And thank you so much for coming on again, Adam.
This was
always
a pure pleasure.
Always,
You guys are doing a great thing, and don't stop. Whatever you do, keep going.
Thank you.
I'll be there with you guys.
We appreciate that. Yeah,
keep pushing through.
And we're definitely, obviously, going to have you back on for round 5.
I think it might be 4.
I think no, XTC, Devo, Talking Heads,
Devo, and then this.
So next time will be 5. Yeah.
Keep going. We'll have to send you a star on a VIP hat.
Yeah, we do.
I want a star on the walk.
The walk of
in front of your front of your house.
Yeah.
It's Walk of Fame. In front of Brad's house.
Hell yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be a great idea, actually.
Yeah. I mean, the next person that owns the house would be like,
not gonna buy it.
What is this about? But thanks for being on. Thank you guys all for listening to the podcast once again, and we will see you next time on the Album Concept Hour. The Album Concept Hour is Brad LeBaron, Dave Gallagher, and John Aker. Special thanks to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard for the theme music. Join the discussion on our Discord, tweet to us at Album Concept Pod, or for everything else, go to Linktree/Flyover State Park. See you on Side B. This is Flyover State Park. You are clear to land.